Hello and welcome to this episode of Point Counterpoint. We are here to discuss and deliberate an issue which is of deep concern. It's linked to our basic identity, it's linked to the soil on which we were born and raised, and it's linked to our future. Very rarely does a subject that encompasses the past, present, and the future as a subject of land and agriculture, which at one point of time was intrinsic to the way of life and living of Goa. It was a part of our past, it was a part of our growing up years, and it was a part of a Goa that we all knew and loved. To many of us, life on the farm and life in villages is the way we have seen Goa, including people who are now living in urbanized villages like Kandoli and in Kalangut and so on and so forth. But ultimately, let us not forget that the roots of all our existence and living, especially in Goa, has been in the rural areas. Villages full of farms, villages full of khazan lands, forests, backwaters, sluice gates, fishing, multiple crops. These are things that almost seem like an absolute or faraway dream that we can only think of in storybooks, and that's exactly what's going to happen in many villages if we are not careful. We are also here because we are at a crossroads where Goa, being the Goa that it is and it was, does not even have a proper policy to dictate the manner in which our agricultural activities have to be carried out. It does not have a strong document and a strong vision to essentially tell us the way forward so that we can preserve our farmlands, our khazan lands. We can ensure that crops are grown properly. We can also prevent ourselves from the takeover of agricultural land from land sharks. These are issues that can obviously happen, but if there is a vision, and that vision needs to be documented. Goa has been fighting for an agriculture policy for a very, very long time. Lip service has certainly been made. Committees have been formed. If you recall, the committee headed by the former MP Naren Savikar was formed to essentially look into the ways and means to draft a policy. That again, it has been left hanging for various reasons. Even now, the government has, of course, made a tiny step forward by they had asked for suggestions from people so that an agriculture policy could be drafted. This again was due to a very strong people's movement. But what happened? On the 14th of July, the government made their will known and asked for suggestions. How much time did they give? Till the 16th of August. Barely a month and 2 days. Now, in 32 days, is it possible for the whole of Goa and people to meet, discuss, assimilate their thoughts and come up with suggestions? The government then extended it by a little margin, right up to September, if I'm not mistaken. That day has come and gone, 16th of September. Of course, it is not a closed issue, but the people are now reacting. People are saying that, look, if you're really interested in knowing from us how our futures are going to be, then you need to give us time. You need to give us a proper space and time to discuss and deliberate. On Monday, on the coming Monday, we are shooting this on a Thursday. Panchayats all across will be meeting. There's going to be a special Gram Sabha. Of course, it's Gandhi Jayanti on that day. But the government has also, at this point of time, said to include a discussion on the agriculture policy as one of the major issues to be taken up. Some panchayats have put that in their agenda, some panchayats have not. But in today's discussion, after I introduce our very eminent panelists, we will not just look into the agriculture policy, but also focus on what needs to be in that policy and beyond for us to have sustainable agriculture and farming and a way of life and an ecosystem which is sustainable beyond the policy. So other issues like management of khazan lands, management of our wetlands, on how the youth can come back to agriculture to take the whole battle forward or take the preservation mantra forward. Because if you notice how many young people are on the farms these days, how many people are there to carry on their legacy. community farming has gone literally, completely. Because earlier the community used to get together and farm, go on to each other's fields. That has now been replaced by migrant labor from outside, expensive migrant labor from outside, which is now completely leading to a degradation of farming. Because young people are just not there, and the older people are getting old. How much they don't have strong enough legs to get onto farm. So there are multiple issues that we will get into, which we need to address. But let us hope that this discussion is at least a drop in the ocean in a better preserved Goa. The panelists, I will introduce you from my right. Professor Elsa Fernandez, welcome, ma'am. She's the chairperson of the Khazan Society and has worked extensively to promote traditional ecosystems in Goa. She's also a professor. She she teaches, and environmental architecture is one of her main areas of work. But suffice to say, she's a person of the soil and a fighter for Goa's ecosystems. Next to her, Jack Mascarenhas, very well known, and in these days as the president of the Goiche Fudle Filge Khatir, the GFPK organization, essentially formed for the future of Goa's youth, and it is very important. So, but ultimately his aim is to also see that the future generation gets into farming, and more importantly, there needs to be farm and farmland for the future generation to actually farm. But the issue is, it is his leadership, and along with many others, which has actually at least led to a greater conversation on this issue. And it is very important, because these suggestions on the draft agriculture policy, he has been involved in things like the Margaon ODP and so on and so forth. But ultimately, he and along with the others are going to play a very big part in the whole process of feedback and conversations. Amancio Fernandez is also a very well-known name in this field, former Deputy Director of Agriculture, and of course he's been at it for 30 years and above, and has not left the fields and the farms even after he is no longer the Deputy Director Agriculture. But I think people like him may retire, but they never tire. So he's here also to speak about many of these issues that need, and with a in-depth experienced look that he has always had. And last but not the least, another hero of the soil, Santan Rodriguez. He's the chairman of the Kurturi Biodiversity Committee. The idea here is that in Kurturi, it is actually known as one of the rice bowl of Goa is known as one of the finest panchayats, which is managing their water bodies and their farms in an extensive way. And of course, he also is a fighter like all others. I will begin by asking Elsa to open this discussion based on a lot of points I've raised. I don't have a specific question, but you could touch upon any of the topics.
Yes, I like mention of two things. One is farming in Goa is a way of life. Yeah, we should not look at farming as some commercial activity or a livelihood. Yes, it is. It encompasses all of this. But it is a way of life. Like from the morning to the night, like 24 hours of a farmer is a whole lot of activity.
Right.
And most of this is supposed to be covered in this policy.
Right.
And therefore, this policy, we are looking at a policy and we are looking at the future.
Right.
So how much future? Assuming minimum 10, we have to create a vision.
Right.
And that vision has to have some main actors in our focus.
Right.
And that is the reason why when we all got together and we discussed this threadbare,
Right.
all the time the focus was highlighted for the farmer, for the crop, and for his land.
Right.
So this comes through in every discussion.
Right.
And we want that these 3 points needs a highlight, needs a focus in the policy.
Right. Coming to you, see, what is most important here is that as the president of your organization, you are essentially taking this whole movement forward. If you could just tell us a little bit on how did this issue come up again, and why did the government suddenly kind of decide to involve people, and this whole issue of this agriculture policy which is now being talked about, You know, is it a new phenomenon that has suddenly come up, or is there a history to it also?
See, it is very complicated issue actually to say anything without any evidence.
Right.
You know? But somehow, you know, we were trying to dig in this.
Right.
Government came with this circular on 14th of July.
Right.
And then we were observing now the way they came, like they wanted the suggestion from the public,
Right.
but they were not doing anything about it.
Right.
Till end of the July, we still you know, waiting for government or someone else to come up with something or make some noise or awareness.
Right.
Still nothing. So on first week of August also, nobody is saying anything about it. So we were a little suspicious.
Right.
Then we thought like, we go and try to do something. Then we try to get the people who are, you know, good in that particular field.
Right.
We got them studied the policy, and then we started having the movement,
Right.
meetings and all.
Right.
And then suddenly we realized these suggestions, it's not an easy task, you know, it's a complicated. To have better suggestion, we need data first.
Right.
And to have data, we need to do a research.
Absolutely.
And to have research, we need time.
Right.
So, and suddenly 16 August was the last day, and we are on 12th now. We
But
had a
before
farmers
this
meeting.
July 14th,
Yeah.
wasn't there any talk of an agriculture policy earlier?
Before in 2012 they had something.
Right,
And
right.
suddenly there was nothing about it.
Right. Right.
And somehow, you know, they are also keeping it a gray area, which is very difficult to say anything without evidence. But in other part of the world, we can see the corporates are trying to eliminate these small and middle scale farmers.
Right.
And trying to give it for the corporate.
Right.
So here we are trying to emphasize on community farming. Once community farming comes, there is a benefit for everybody.
Correct.
So community means the corporate is eliminated, no
Right.
middlemen.
Right.
The benefit goes to the consumer, direct contact with the consumer.
Right.
And they have a lot of ideas, you know, sharing their knowledge, social gathering. There are a lot of benefits in that.
Right.
So in that sense, now in this agriculture policy, we are trying to emphasize only community farming and going to explain what the benefits are there. Because we saw one place, one farmer was, you know, producing 9 tons of onion in 1 hectare individually.
Right.
Then because of some that micro credit facility and all, they formed a group.
Right.
And from the same 1 hectare, they could produce 22 ton
Right.
from 9. So there are so many benefits you go as a community.
Right.
This is what we are trying to educate our ground level farmers.
Right. But you coming, I'd like to bring you back to this agriculture policy issue which of course Elsa and Jack spoke of. Now, right now, everybody is very happily and very welcomingly talking about the agriculture policy. But when it first started in 2012 and then thereafter, and you were in the government at that point of time, why wasn't there, you know, any vision or any focus on having a policy at all? I mean, in the sense, are you saying that from so many years, from the, you know, if you go back 20 years, 25 years, are you saying that Goa never had an agricultural policy?
See, Goa with such limited land resource
Right.
is under tremendous pressure from different sectors.
Right.
Everybody knows that.
Right.
Maybe industry, maybe housing, maybe other activities. Looking at agriculture sector, we hardly have 3.6 lakh hectares,
Correct.
of which not even 50%, 1.6 lakh hectare is under cultivation.
Right.
Remaining still remains hanging, fallow, these other issues. Now, when this policy was thought of in 2012, we said, look, let us map
You
it.
were in government then.
I was in government. Let us map it.
Right.
Let us profile it so that we can have land use in place. And based on that, we will be able to classify land and preserve it. We, in our organization, we call it now freeze it and lock it.
Right.
So this pre-exercise of identifying the areas, mapping the areas, profiling it was not in place.
Right.
The policy did not have with fuel to really run.
Right.
And then it just
No,
went.
but why? Because of lack of will.
I feel basically there was no political will and there was no technical backup to support it. Right,
Right.
now we have like GSI mapping and so many other things
Right.
which can instantly happen.
Right.
And now we felt the pressure more now because the need for our self-sufficiency. We are depending on vegetable from Karnataka, we depend on milk from Karnataka, we depending on fruits from Karnataka.
But tell me, even during those times without the policy,
Yeah.
it seems that our farms were better managed than what they are now. Now, why was that happening? Was it because the panchayats were playing a better positive role than they are doing now?
They had more authority and less interference. That's my experience.
Okay,
As-
so the
as-
panchayats
I
were
think
doing-
basically the communities of Goa already have this
System
system
in
which
place.
are governed at a collective.
Correct.
Goa, the basic nature of administration was collective.
So what you're saying is right now you need a policy because that collective administration system is broken.
collapse.
There are a lot of challenges which have set in,
Right.
and to set things right, we will need something.
Right.
And policy
don't
is
have
one
to-
way forward.
Right.
We don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
The Komdat was the age old. I am a Zaunkar of Komdat in Benawali.
Right.
That system was effectively working. As you are saying, the labor dependency, small holding, not being viable. But collectively they were doing it. Fantastic job.
Yes, but the point is, if you know now, as far as the Comunidades are concerned, they were certainly doing it.
Yes.
But now the issue is that Comunidades themselves are defunct in most places. Also, the other time is that the Comunidades had money, they had funds, because from those funds they used
would
to pay
generate.
for, they would generate, and they would pay for, they would give subsidies for tilling, for machines, for so on and so forth.
Correct.
Now, what has happened is the Comunidad body itself is defunct and it has no money. It will not be able to pay for this. That which actually means now most of the villages are dependent on MLAs to support them.
What was happening?
And this become
Yeah, I
political
agree.
now.
I agree. What was happening? Basically, we used to auction these lands. I used to get revenue for our Komdat.
Correct.
Now the Tenancy Act has come in,
Correct.
and they have cut our throat, and they are not even brought
So
the.
basically, what you are saying about Comunidades doing it, you are absolutely right. But the point is to that cannot happen overnight here, because firstly you have to revive and make the
Make
Comunidades
them back
powerful
to-
and
yeah,
make the
yeah.
Comunidades earn, because right now the Comunidades are
have
literally
no
literally
income
paupers.
generating.
And
No
that is the
income
problem.
generating.
Sardar Bab, you can answer in concrete, no problem. I just wanted to ask you this. The point here is that in the different panchayats and gram sabhas, according to you, what are the main things that should happen in the agriculture policy? What should be there in the policy, which is very important in concrete terms?
डिसेंट्रलायझेशन जावपा जाय डेव्हल्यूशन ऑफ पावर
Right.
पंचायत आसपा जाय ते आहाय बुकाचेर पूण ते इम्प्लिमेंट जायनाय प्रोडक्शन कमिटी आहा
Huh.
इम्प्लिमेंट जायना पयलीं जाताले ते म्हणटे भशेन बाबा आमांचो जेडिओ आसलो हे 35 years ago
Right.
जाताले ते सरपंच सगळे करतालो
Collectively, we
कलेक्टिव्हली करताले आनी एक ग्राम सेवक आसतालो
Yes.
गांवांत ते सगळे पळोवपाक ते घेवन करताले तेन्ना आमी चेअरमॅन आसले ते कमिटीचे टेनंट असोसिएशन आसले जेन्ना टेनंट असोसिएशन येता येयलो एकटो येयलो म्हणटा ते भाशेन जॉयंट रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ टेनंट्स असोसिएशन ते हें आसता आनी ते कलेक्टिव्हली करताय पूण ते दिसा ते कोमदाद मॅनेजमेंट गेले मागीर ते टेनंट्स करपा लागले मागीर तेन्ना हे पावर मागीर गव्हर्मेंट स्लोली
Take over.
काडून टेक ओवर केले मागीर ते पावर ना आमकां ते मामलादारा गेले मामलादार डिसायड करता हिंगा एग्रीकल्चराक कोण लागता मामलादार लागना जेडिओ लागपा जाय
Right.
एग्रीकल्चर डिपार्टमेंट दुसरे डिफरंट डिपार्टमेंट आहाय मदें गेले जाल्यार TCP म्हणटा हें म्हणटाय फार्मरा कितें जाता फार्मर सांडलो आतां मुखार येवपा सोदताय जाय फार्मर कम्युनिटी एकून आतां आमी देव कम्युनिटी करताय आमचे शेतकार करताय ते कांयच बरें आहाय थिंगा फॉर एग्जाम्पल मायणा करतरी ते फार्मर आयज देव मेंटेन करताय फाल्यां सांगपा शकना पूण थिंग बरें चलता आनी कलेक्टिव्हली वर्सा एक पाटी हांडी वर्सा हेस्त म्हूण जाता ते सगळे डिसायड करताय हालीं बांद म्हणले ते सगळे येताय कलेक्टिव्हली येताय रिपेर करताय शेतां लायनीन रोयताय तेंगे आसता मॅनेजमेंट आसता प्रॉपर
without government support.
विथआउट गव्हर्मेंट
Fully owned by them.
Right.
हें कम्युनिटी आनी गव्हर्मेंट इंटरफियर जाला जेन्ना असोसिएशन आहा गव्हर्मेंट म्हणटा क्लब कर हें कर डिवायड करताय तें असोसिएशनान घट जावपा जाय जें पळय मामलादाराक आहा तें पावर जेडिओका दिवपाचें एग्रीकल्चर ऑफिसरां कडेन
Right.
आनी पंचायताकूय दिवपाचें डेव्हल्यूशन जो जेडिओ मनीस पंचायतान मेळपाचें
Quick action.
शेतकारां डायरेक्ट वचपा जाता
Right.
आ शेतकार थिंग शेत रोवपा रावतलो ते स्किमी हाडल्या भोंवपा रावतलो हे डिफरंट ऑथॉरिटी आहाय शेतकार टायर्ड जाता
Right.
आनी ती धाकली फोल्डिंग आहा पयलीं ते कोमदादी कितें जातालें ते फोर घेताले हें घेताले सगळे कलेक्टीव करताले
Right.
पूण जेन्ना टेनन्सी एक्ट येयलो ते सगळे डीम ओनर जाले टेनन्स आहाय ते आपण इंडिविज्युअल गेले आनी गव्हर्मेंटाक तशें जालो जाय डिवायड करून आनी आतां तशें जाल्लें आहा तें आतां बरें करून एकठांय जावन मुखार येयलें जाल्यार कम्युनिटी फार्मींग बरें करून जावपाक शकता
Right. So another aspect, I'll just take off from where Sardar Bab left off. As far as this community farming is concerned, and I'll elaborate a little bit on what I had earlier said. Now the point is, you can have community farming and all that, provided there are farmlands. The issue is that the total number of farmlands, number one, is shrinking and shrinking. So there is no scope to have community farming. That's one aspect. Second aspect is that Goa, correct me if I'm wrong, because
लँड आहा टेनंटेड जे पळय टेनंटेड लँड आहा तें एग्रीकल्चर करपा जाय ते कन्वर्ट जाता
absolutely, I'll come to that's true. Conversions
तें
happen.
काबार जालां हावजींग येता मदें
And
आतां
ownership
आमी-
title.
Correct. I'll just come to that specifically. What he's saying is very important. I've got a separate section only to address that. So coming back to what I started submitting, is that issue is, if correct me if I'm wrong, earlier we used to have 3 crops in Goa, once upon a time, not too long ago also. Okay, the command area development's whole scheme was created just to ensure that you at least have the 3rd crop. Now what is happening is that what I also learned that for the, as far as the 3rd crop is concerned, water which was preserved and accumulated either through sluice gates and others, it used to be released in the month of November after the 2nd crop, so that the 3rd crop was possible. Now what the feedback that I'm getting is, this water is not getting released in November, it is getting released in January, as a result of which the 3rd crop is not getting possible. Thirdly, the issue is that there is no effort to think differently and move out and get into other kind of crops which is going to give better benefit. Just Satara, you can react to this.
Canal आसा, canal system आणि command area थिंगा 3 crops जात आहे. Lake water आसिंग 3 crops जाय नाही. Rabi आणि Kharif 2 crops जात आहे. हे command area त्या canal मेळता आहे. पोचव्या टायमार canal आला.
Paroda canal.
बार आला.
Paroda
Paroda
canal.
canal. ते चांदर आला. Plan नासलो न्ही. Policy आसलेली government कडे. Granary of Salsett म्हणटा आमकां करतरी. तो plan आसलो. ते canal पळयलो. ते माकादान तोड्या पळयले. उदक सगळें मेळ्ळां. तेन्ना 3 crop जाताले. आतां ते शेतकार तें पडो नाय. शेतां बेतां सारकें system ना.
Right.
Labor
In Santa Cruz, I will also highlight our village Bonwall Lake, which is there.
Right, yes.
That lake during the Portuguese time, it was like taken up for the need of these 3 crops.
I see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there were 2 concerns at that point of time, like
Right.
1901.
Right.
Drinking water and crops. So food and water was their only need, and therefore that investment which went in making up, so that it has enough resource,
Right.
was to support the crop, and
Right.
there that extent of 3rd crop also was
There.
channelized in that system.
Right. Right.
So we need not look at community systems only. These were village systems.
Right.
They are very village specific, and if you have this kind of arrangement, lakes, wherever the lakes are, these are the systems which are there. But to say that the control of the water to release this is with some authority, no, it is with the community.
Right.
And therefore
Or it
they
should
can
be rather.
Yes.
Should
and,
be.
And it
Yes.
can be.
When it comes to canal, it is another authority.
हे 3 crops केन्ना जातले. Short duration variety भात मेळपा जाय.
No, bath
Yeah.
no, paddy is
Paddy,
not the
yeah,
3rd crop.
yeah.
Right. That is
Yeah,
not the
yeah,
3rd crop.
yeah.
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 ते ह्या
That
duration
circle, yeah.
So the planning
multiple
based on multiple
types of
cropping,
crop.
yes.
Why?
Yeah. No, see, the other thing that Sandarma mentioned is this whole shrinking of land and takeover of land for other activities.
Yes.
Now the issue is the agriculture policy, or the people who love agriculture, or at least the department that is there to protect agriculture. Don't you think there should be a very strong call that before any decision is taken on land conversion or giving agricultural land for non-agricultural purposes, or any legislation that comes, there should be a proper discussion with the agriculture department and stakeholders before taking any decision on land conversion?
Yes, in fact, that is one of the very strong point which has come from farmers.
Okay.
In all our discussions, one of the highlights which the farmer is, forcing onto us, and
Yes.
therefore suggested to the government, is that the land, if it is agricultural land,
Right.
it should be saved for that purpose.
Right.
And therefore, now we are not looking at a policy, agriculture policy. We have to look into another department.
Future policy.
Yes, and we have to look into controls and powers of another department,
Right.
which regulates the land use.
Right. Right.
Now, so far we have always seen that land use have been controlled, has had some system, but lately we are seeing dilution of that system. Lately we are seeing no public participation into that system,
Right.
which has kind of deteriorated, and the impact is on the farmer. And then we title it under the title of development.
Right.
Now we have to include agriculture also in the definition of development.
Right. Right.
And when we see this thing holistically, then only we can, understand what the farmer is trying to tell us.
Right. Ma'am, tell me this now. Of course, Goa's khazans are under severe threat. I mean, they are literally in the ICU and struggling to survive. Now, how important is protection of khazans an intrinsic part of any agriculture policy?
Very important. I think if you ask for any khazan farmer, Santan Bhavanka khazan farmer, if you ask any khazan farmer, he will tell you today that if we have fear of risks of climate change into our mind, and the farmer is very good at his experiential knowledge. He will tell you where the water was at in which year, and te ata udak वाढला चोडला, he will tell you. So if he has sense of climate change in ground reality, we better have a sense of climate change from whatever research globally which is highlighted.
Right.
You know, and therefore we have to look at Kazan systems in its maintenance, in its recovery, not just from food point of view, also from climate change point of view. So the risks are many, and I am trying to highlight here that it is a ready system.
Right.
It's like Goa has a ready system to save it from lot of risks, and already Goa is on the high index, high vulnerability risk.
Right.
So why can't we look at a ready system which the ancestors have given us?
Correct.
We may have to invest a little bit in its management. Perfect. I mean, it works. It works for us. It's like amazing that our ancestors.
But where have the
did
Khazans gone?
They are very much there. It's just that in
Purtore
they
hai.
are. Yeah.
Ignored.
It's just that.
Purtori is special.
It's just that.
Locally, Rajwala,
At some parts they are really
English
special.
the Agriculture Act, fishing also part of agriculture mass होता है.
Yes.
Actually, those are still model villages where the good things happen.
Yes.
हाँ
yes.
सर इंतून त्या कितें म्हणटा फिशींग सेपरेट डिपार्टमेंट वयता फिशरीज डिपार्टमेंट गेले agriculture गेले कोण हॉर्टिकल्चर करता हॉर्टिकल्चर गेले तेच मध्ये डिफरंट
They are not converging.
But you say in a village level they should all be one.
Converge.
Yes. Yes.
one
Yes.
edge
And one
farmer means
nodal
farmer.
agency who will converge the things and make it.
Right. Jack, I'll take some time from you now. See, tell me now, the issue here is that for the first time in many years, we are looking at a proper citizens movement on especially on agriculture and land. So tell us a little bit about how this has been created, what has been the response, especially from the youth, and what is the role that they're going to play in ensuring that Goa has a proper policy now.
See, actually, we are trying to understand the ground situation.
Right.
After speaking to the farmers and all, no, actually, we are trying to analyze.
Right.
Now, I was exploring the report of 2019. Goa had 1,41,000 hectares cultivable area.
In 2014.
The report of 2019.
Right, right.
Okay. And only 31,000 hectares is cultivated.
Right.
Now, just try to understand. There was a time our ancestors was cultivating this entire
Right.
1,41,000.
Right.
And there was no electricity.
Yeah.
There was no machinery.
Right.
How could they do it?
Right.
So there is something, we are missing. And
Right.
what I try, one factor is there was a sense of community. Collective effort was there in the past, which is missing now. Now, some may argue that that time there were, not many job opportunities.
Right.
Now they are. But on that, I don't see job opportunity. It's true actually, but that is not the bigger picture. Bigger picture is we have been conditioned so deeply that we are made to understand that money is everything. But the way if we go little deeper, money is not everything. We need money for survival. We need money. If our basic needs are met, after that money has no value. So money is not the highest goal.
Right.
Freedom is the highest goal. And that freedom is what our children are going to lose. On that we have to, emphasize. And I don't see, actually now we have too many problems, but I don't see problems. I just see there's an absence of ideas to find the solution. And if we collaborate, miracles in Goa is still possible to make Goa a better place for us and for our children.
How are you bringing the children, youth into this movement?
Now see, there is a country, Burkina Faso, near that Ivory Island.
Yes.
78% of the youth is involved in agriculture sector. Global average is 20%.
Right.
And if there is a political will, I don't see any problem to get our youth in this agriculture sector.
But most of the youth are either leaving Goa for other jobs, or they're going into the ships, or they are migrating to other
Yeah,
places.
this is the problem.
They are either in UK. The problem is, where are the young people?
Yeah, this I agree with you, but this is what I'm saying. We don't know what we want.
Right.
Now people are going or this. There are many people are debating. There are no jobs and all that. Most of the people who are working,
Right.
are they happy with their job? So if
Right.
you analyze this deeply,
Right.
this problem is created, regarding the job thing.
Right.
But once we, get the right environment for the kids at the right age, then these kids will not go just for money. They will see the freedom. They will see the what really we need. And the farming at the before, the ancestors, they did not have all this disease and all.
Right.
Now we have money, but there is, people are not happy. But what do we want? We want to be happy. See, all this, brainstorming we have to do at the young age.
Right.
And then we can, reverse this. Now, see, Singapore in 1969,
Right.
what was their status?
Right.
Worse than what we have now.
Right.
See how they came up. So these way the possibilities are there if we collaborate. The right people come together and do the right thing, we can still reverse this.
I feel basically the youth are not been given the direction and incentive. For instance, how does our passion आमकां आवड कशी लागता भुरगेपणा फुटबॉल खेळपाक, because football is available in my house and also in the school,
Right.
also in the church and temple they
Right.
give grounds.
Right.
So that naturally तुगे रगतान येता आनी तुका आवड लागता. So आमची माती आमची दायज म्हणटा आमी. So that affinity and passion for your soil, for your land, for your trees, for your paddies
Right.
is not happening. Why? Because there is no grooming at the ground level. I strongly demand from my association that this policy should focus on inculcating the basic values of farm, agriculture, dairying, all these areas which are nature based, so that we can start in the schools. Now new education policy आमची सुरत जातली तेतून एक सब्जेक्ट पुराय आसपा जाय and तांकां practically a cluster of college and schools. For example, my place Venna is a hub for education. Our farmers club is there, Novensal Krishi Sanstha. We are ready to give them 1 acre of land. Let the ICR, let the veterinary department, let the beekeeping unit, let the coconut board of India come and tell us not only what they can grow, how they can process, how they can make agribusiness and make money out of it.
Right.
And so we want to have a smart agriculture village. That is the concept we are promoting in our area. We are not hearing
Yeah,
about
instead of spending crores and crores on smart cities, let us have
which will
smart
give,
villages.
which will make us self-sufficient, which will give us good food, a healthy food.
Right.
So this youth will be attracted.
Right.
So why not give them opportunity by getting in the schools this subject. We have faculty, we have a lot of resource people to
Right.
do it, and
Right.
goal is very small. You can tackle it. I'm sure this government will take suggestion very seriously and make this strategy in the policy.
I will also add one point
Yes,
there that from the student and the young
Minds.
point of view, new education policy is a huge opportunity.
Right. Right.
If the government is aligned with parallelly
NEP.
with such
Yes.
policies, it can make wonders out of agriculture policy.
Correct.
I think provision should be made connecting
Right.
it with the
No,
new
that's a very
education.
important
Yes.
point.
आमचे 7-8 फार्मर आहे ते भायर घालपा जॉब सोडला मागीर बोटीचेर सोडला
Yes.
इंडिविज्युअल फार्म केला
परत येयले.
इंटिग्रेटेड फार्म म्हण
परत येयले.
फॉर एग्जाम्पल सालादर
मार्काजाना.
माकाजान पण बेस्ट फार्म आहा पूण सगळे मागीर हें कोत्ता जाय तें मार्केट गव्हर्मेंट तें कांय तें सगळे बायल हाडटाय. फॉर एग्जाम्पल सोसायटी तांदूळ बायल येता फार्मरांक कोण चिंतना ते सबसिडी दिले म्हळ्यार जालें म्हणटाय ते सबसिडी आमकां 10 रुपया दिले ते 20 रुपया वयताय कित्याक बायल हाडटाय सगळे मिडल मॅन जाल्ले ते मिडल मॅन काडपा जाय सगळे कम्युनिटी येवपा जाय तशें करून दुसरें आज एग्रिकल्चर जाला दुसरो कोण मनीस येता पेंट मारता ताका लागून फार्मरा आपणा मोग आसपा जाय आपणा जमनीचो गोंयकार म्हणटा गोंयकारपण सांबाळटा जाल्यार मोग आसपा जाय
There are success
ते
stories.
पयशे आस जाता तांकां हें ताण येता पूण ते आस कोण क्रिएट करता गव्हर्मेंट आज गव्हर्मेंट कोण चलयता फार्मराक ना गव्हर्मेंट फार्मर सांगता कोण आयकना
But we have the
ते आमकां
rice plate in our hand.
करपा जोरी तर आम मार्केट दिन सगळें गव्हर्मेंट हें करता
Yeah, the government is not a farmers' government.
Yeah.
I think we are telling the youth that income is money.
Right.
For the farmer, income is his crop.
Right.
Now to convert the crop into money, there is only a marketing gap.
Of course. And that needs to be expanded.
And that has to be taken care of.
Correct.
And
So it
expand.
can be, the crop can be money.
Correct.
But if we are teaching the youth not about agriculture, even in their schools, and we are tuning their mindset
for
to, income
service-
in terms of
service
numbers,
Correct. Correct.
then there is a
Ah, so that-
हें सपोर्ट प्रायस बी टायमार मेळपा जाय फार्मराक
Incentives which
मेळना
are
ते मेळना हें रावपा जाय फार्मर आतां शेतां रावतलो ते ऑप्शन पावता ते स्कीम पयशे येयले ना ते पळोवपा
yeah, these hurdles are there.
हें गव्हर्मेंटान थिंगा हेल्प करा आनी हे पॉलिसी सायड डायरेक्ट घालपा टायमार पयशे मेळपाचे
So we-
टायमार हें जावपाचें
we are looking so in a policy which will project models to the youth and next generation. That's our concern. Fully pidge khatir.
Right.
Like if you have a mixed farming model in a 2 acre of land, what we are talking about our Saladar in Makazana,
Right.
Captain Rodney in
Kela,
Kotori,
hela,
Right.
where you mix not only grains, you go into green revolution, you go into white revolution with dairy farming, you go into fisheries blue revolution,
Right.
and all these 3 components integrated makes your input cost very low. because there's recycling.
Right.
There's no garbage, there's no waste, nothing. And then it makes your natural food so productive, and you can rely on it 100%. Today we talk about all the diseases. Cancer has become a big issue today.
Right.
Every next door you have cancer.
Right.
And we're talking about cancer hospital. I'm worried actually. I'm shivering. We are now saying that most of the attributing factor for this disease are food that we consume, which comes from different places for which we don't know the safety.
Right.
We do not check the
Very
tolerance
point.
level.
Correct.
We don't see how much residue on that crop.
You have a control over what you're growing.
Growing.
And you're growing in your local area.
And our community
have
is
a
so
control over
so
your
educated,
consumption also, yes.
distinct, they are ready to give you a price. But the whole network mechanism has to be placed. We are demanding the new policy that there should be consumer producer markets in every taluka, and they would be facilitated by the government. And the farmers club will be the link person, the tenant association should be link person.
Right.
Should not be a middleman.
Right.
It can happen. And our boys have got ideas. They are on the media. They can overnight when the harvesting of fish is happening
Yes.
in Kutturi,
Kutturi.
it is gone all over the world.
Absolutely correct. Correct.
So
That's true.
overnight they can do it. But let us create models in this policy. Let us create systems, mechanism in place, and make it viable. Make it feasible. 24 hours should be a work, and 365 days should be income generating. At present, we are ek crop roilo asom. Again, rest give So say God, that should not be the policy.
Right.
One more aspect which we highlighted from
Yeah.
youth-centric
Right,
point of view
right.
is the secondary products
Okay.
Processing.
which have a chain into an agricultural process.
Right.
So these are areas where the youth can come up with their own product sense and actually explore research
Correct.
and
As
actually
an
it
offshoot
can,
of this.
it will be a fully commercial
So
activity.
at the moment, like virgin coconut oil, which is a pattern of ICR Goa.
Right.
It is really flourished.
Yes,
Right.
My
we
friend
suggested
Joseph
this.
in Navili is doing it.
Right.
There is Vasco people everywhere, and it's one of the best product in terms of health.
Right.
Virgin coconut, everybody
Right.
knows it.
Right.
Dementia and for your this thing, it's very good. They are saying, and it's promoted all over.
Right.
Like that, we have a big scope in jackfruit.
Right.
Jackfruit pulp is going waste. Huge amount of it.
Right.
Can we develop some storage cold chain?
Jackfruit pulp, you say. Okay.
Then can we have some cold chains? Now our Alsando is a big crop in our Salsit,
Right.
especially Majada Utoda.
Right.
That is going immediately with borer attack and all. We need to have cold chains so that it can take over another season and keep it durability.
Right.
So the farmer can make the money. Right now we are selling the middleman. Right now, our big market complex is coming in Margao.
Right.
So we are demanding in the policy, keep these places for our farmers, make it farmer friendly, make them accessible so that they can go into it. The youth, calculates in 2 minutes.
Correct.
What is the crop, what is the income, what is this?
Right.
For us, it was been just attachment. The new generation will calculate its value.
Meantime,
Mankurar, sir, you take the world famous. The flavor you can put for any ice cream, and I can tell you it go like hotcakes.
Right.
It's not happened. I'm inviting companies to go keep this as a flavor agent for which our youth can link up, make a pulp, keep it for another season. I tell you, the ice cream will be world class. It'll have such a demand. It's such an aroma of flavor
Right.
of Mankurat. We have to look at it as a major asset of Goa.
Yeah.
आम्ही थोडे बायोडायवर्सिटीचे केल्ले आसा सर लोकल बायोडायटी
Jackfruit.
जॅकफ्रूट जावं
Processing.
कोकोनट प्रोसेसिंग जायते तांदूळ रायस प्रोसेसिंग हे आमी केल्ले आहे सपोर्टेड बाय गोवा स्टेट बायोडायट बोर्ड
Right.
तेणे आमी केल्ले आहे ते सक्सेस स्टोरी जाल्ले आहे
Right.
Just
हे
to
तर
multiply.
गव्हर्मेंटान तर
Take over
केले
last year.
सक्सेस स्टोरी रेप्लिकेट करपाच्यो आनी कुट्टरे ब्रँड म्हणटा मग ते बेजार जावपा जायना कुट्टरे ब्रँड म्हणटा आमी सगळे केल्ले आसा सगळे ते कुट्टरे ग्रांडर म्हणटाले पात ते मुखार पावल्यात चिंचिणी जाता चिंचिणी बरें
But
जाल्ले
Kurtari shows the way.
Shows the way. Leading.
रिप्लिकेट जावपा जाय आनी चड कोण टेनंट आसा चलता जाल्यार मायणा करतरी टेनंट चलता
Yes.
ते भाशेन चलपा जाय कित्याक थिंग सारकें चलता
Right.
कोण बांदा कामां येना फायन पडटा कोणा मिटिंगेक गाडी मारली फायन पडटा हें गोंयांत चलना गव्हर्मेंटाक ऑथॉरिटी आसतना हे ते जर कोत्ताय आनी ते आदल्यान दाखोवन दिलो तें सांबाळटाय तें
Right.
करपा जाय
So you suggested that many of our youth are leaving the state, going abroad and all. We want them to come back to the roots. They have to come back.
Yeah, but
what has
but-
happened? What
but
has
they have
happened?
to
African.
see- they have to see an opportunity.
What are
Yes.
opportunities? We are saying very clearly. Can you not, Professor also saying, can you not invest in this agro processing? I know they don't want to go in the field, dirty themselves. They are computer savvy. Fine. Can they not invest in the agro processing? Can they not invest in the fisheries?
Correct.
That's huge.
Correct.
The next food security is in the sea.
Correct.
So these are areas which are open, but government has to
Database
facilitate.
management.
We want the
Another area
government
of-
in this
Most
policy,
important.
Sujay. We want the government to facilitate our boys with a policy of NRI investment in agriculture. It can happen. It has happened in Kerala and some other states. It is doing wonderful work. Today, Kerala is exporting the raw jackfruit as meat. And it is famous, very famous.
Make it
Yeah.
not
When I was zonal officer,
vegetarian meat,
yes, when I was zonal officer in Ponda in the 80s, Kerala men used to come take truckloads of my korgut because it is the best beaten rice, the best quality. There are areas which are successful, but what we are saying is let the government put a policy in place, let the farmers be assured what they grow will get an income, and there is a takeoff.
See, one aspect that we have to raise here is that all this is possible. I go back again to the same subject, that we must have enough cultivable land. You can do agriculture only if you have agricultural land available to you. If land gets converted rapidly, and then you have different, different acts and rules that are being put. See, for instance, I'll point specifically to the Goa restrictions on the transfer of agricultural land Act 2023. Now, ostensibly, the act is designed to ensure that agricultural land is not converted to non-agricultural purpose. But however, at the same time, it gives a little loophole for the collector to ultimately give that permission to transfer agricultural land to people who intend to do agriculture in the longer period. Now, that is basically a backdoor entry to non-agricultural companies and other people to come in. So these are things that need to be looked into very carefully. For instance, I'll also read out. It also says, till the notification of rules under this act, sub-registrars shall not refuse restriction of any such land mentioned in the above act, nor shall demand any proof of being an agriculturist from any buyer. Very clearly said, you cannot demand proof, okay, as they are neither empowered to do so under this act. Now the point here is, first, the rules have not been notified. Secondly, sub-registrar cannot ask for any proof. Thirdly, the collector can give permission to anybody who intends to take up agriculture and is capable of cultivating the land personally. Now, can the collector decide this? Ultimately, the collector, if he wants to give it to somebody and he in his wisdom thinks that this particular party will take up agriculture at a later date, will use his discretion to give it. Now, this obviously causes some doubts to enter people's minds. So how do you solve this? I'll ask all of you. I mean, let's say you can start it.
Yeah, so my point is, see, whenever a new provisions are made legally, there is always a fear which comes to mind, and that fear is not ill-based. It is because of a trust deficit which is there in the system.
Yeah.
Now, assuming that there are fears, and assuming that even in these fear conditions, we are looking at a policy.
Right.
Can this policy make some difference to all the farmers of Goa, that within the spheres that the farmers have,
Right.
there is some kind of control, there is some kind of data which gets generated.
Sure.
So, if we are looking at a database management in the policy, then let such cases get highlighted, which were the lands which saw exchange of ownership or change of ownership,
Right.
and under whatever collector's approval or whatever approval, and where did they go?
Right.
I mean, all of that will be captured data.
Correct.
And then we will have real figures.
Correct.
Because right now it is speculation, and right now it is fear.
Right.
Let us convert the fear into this policy to create the data. And then let us talk about real-time data.
Right. Check, what are your views?
Yeah, this is the most important thing what you are talking about. We need to have a land. For that's why, in our suggestion we put to
Right.
formulate land use policy.
Right.
And we are exploring, legal way how to deal with this. What you say doesn't make any sense. But are they, they can do whatever they want. So this way we are exploring legal way to go for that. Actually, we are planning on it.
Are you all kind of moving court or doing anything to challenge this particular? I mean, fundamentally, do you think this is right?
Looking at the very nature of it, it appears that we are violating the fundamental right of owning. I own my paddy field. I have 3 paddy fields.
Right.
I own the land. It's my fundamental right to own it. If somebody is trying to transgress or violate that right, naturally it's an open option for us. And I think a lot of PIL also will go
Right.
in this area. And this, before it takes shape, I think that should be an anticipatory sort of a move.
Right.
And our organization actually is worried about it, but we have consulting our legal sources and how best we can take care of the people.
Santan Bab, what is the solution to this?
कितें करपाचें?
पयरे हाटी पेपरार येयला
हम्म.
प्रेझेंट TCP मिनिस्टर म्हणटा आपण बापायन केलो म्हण TCP एक्ट आतां आपण चेंज करता विदीन 6 months तें कितें एक स्टेटमेंट येयला पूण हांव कितें म्हणटा TCP डिपार्टमेंटा पावर ना आफ्टर 73rd अमेंडमेंट येयलें तें 74 आर्टिकल 2 पळय ते डिस्ट्रिक्ट प्लॅनिंग कमिटी जावपा जाय DPC म्हणून
DPCs.
आर्टिकल 243ZD तेजे प्रमाणे
Right.
मागीर आमचें प्लॅनिंग आसता तेन्ना आमी प्लॅनिंग कमिशनाचे म्हूण चलताले तेका 65 एक्टाचे 238 239 ते आमकां हें आहा
Right.
तेजे प्रमाणे चलपा जाय ते प्लॅन आसपा जाय
Right.
आनी कलेक्टरा पावर ना थिंगा चीफ एक्झिक्युटीव ऑफिसर जिल्हा रँक ऑफ कलेक्टर साउथ गोवा जिल्हा पंचायत म्हणून आसता एक एग्जांपल दिता साउथ गोवाचे आनी नॉर्थ गोवा डिफरंट आनी जिल्हा चेअरपर्सन पळय आसता तो तेजो हें चेअरमॅन हे कमिटी ते डिफांक धरले आनी हे पॅरल करीत आहाय
How the district planning committee defunct?
Defunct.
डिफांक ना एपॉयंट केल्ले आहाय
But it's not
डिफांक ना
operational.
फंक्शन ना
No operational.
हें ना पूण आहाय एपॉयंट केले
So called.
सगळं ह्या केल्ल्या ते फंक्शन जावपा जाय तो प्लॅन करपा जाय डिस्ट्रिक्ट प्लॅन नॉर्थ एंड साउथ हे 2 प्लॅन जाल्ले तितून हे सगळे येवपा जाय
Actually, based on that,
प्रोडक्शन कमिटी
Yeah.
म्हणटाय 500 लेवल प्रोडक्शन कमिटी ते सॉल्व करताय तीन करून ते मागीर DPC वयताय ते प्लॅन जावपा जाय 5 year प्लॅन आनी एक सांगता गव्हर्मेंटान ते विजन प्लॅन म्हण केल्लो 2035 तितून हे सगळें आसलेलें हे आनी प्लॅन करी येतोय हे आनी भितर हाडीत येताय हे लेटस्ट उलयता हांव लेटस्ट हे समना जालें हांव फ्रस्ट्रेट जालो ह्या दिसांनी कुर्तरी विलेजीस दिता
Yeah.
RP प्लॅन म्हणून आसता 21चे अमके भाशेन आसले आतां चोवपाक गेल्यार सगळें येलो मारला हे फकत पेंटींग मारपाक कोणाक
Surprising.
कांय खबर ना
actually the district
पण
plan.
आतां agriculture आसला तें हांवें उरना
Yellow.
प्रायवेट फॉरेस्ट म्हणून दाखयलो आहा प्रायवेट फॉरेस्टाचे
It's shocking. It's
दाखोवपाचें
very shocking.
Actually, one very strong suggestion which has come from farmers' side is that once the RP, Santan Baban सांगले तो once the RP is finalized, whatever land is shown as agriculture land
Has to be-
should be under the control of the farming community and maybe the Directorate of
That is only
Agriculture.
logical.
That is what they are trying to, suggest.
Correct.
In what way?
But
it
it's
is
not happening that way.
It's not happening that way.
आनी हो पेंट मात
That is what we have to call as freeze it and hand over to them.
Right.
There should be like a law.
आतां पेंट पळय मात ते आर्टिकल 243 ह्या प्रमाणे ते TCP पावर गेले
Right.
विथीन 1 year हें जावपा जाय केलें ना न्ही आतां आपूण 6 म्हयन्या भितर करता म्हणटा हें पंचायत राज हांवें दिनासन तें करप न्ही पंचायत इनवॉल्व करिनाय
Right.
Yeah, there is a little bit of
प्लॅनिंग कमिशन
constitutional
आतां ते
break.
निती आयोग म्हणटाय तें कॅबिनेट डिसिजन घेताय हें करताय तेंच जावपा जायना हें आमकां येवपाक जाय पंचायत इनवॉल्व करपा जाय आतां ते ग्रामसभा घाता म्हणटाय तुमरायचे ते बरयता म्हणा कित्याक डायरेक्टर पंचायत इनवॉल्व करपा जाय तितून
Okay. Now on Monday, we expect a lot of historic meetings to happen in special Gram Sabhas all across Goa. What are you expecting out of it, and what can people do, and how can this particular Gram Sabha on the birthday of Mahatma Gandhi be successful?
I think the vision of our father of the nation was India lives in its villages.
Right.
And it aptly applies to a farming community.
Right.
I think what has to come about in the Gram Sabha are the ground realities of the farmer, because they can be village centric even
Right.
if they are not
Right.
state centric. So village centric there could be issues. There are of course common agenda issues. Second thing I will want to highlight what Santan Bab said. See, there are multiple committees which are formed at panchayat level, and one such committee which is like connected with agriculture is that production committee.
Absolutely, very important. Correct.
Which if you see across the panchayats, which it's only on paper, and for that matter many committees remain only on
And that
paper.
committee should be the sole arbitrator of all issues
Yes.
regarding agriculture.
Yes, and that
Yes.
was
In
the
respective villages.
Yes.
See, there are only 3 committees which are in the act, and this is one of the committee. So you can imagine, even when the act was formed, the Panchayat Raj
This
Act.
was a thought.
Yes, it was a thought that time.
Right.
So even if we didn't have a policy, we had some kind of system, groundwork to protect this occupation of the local Goan person. So if we have committees in place, we need to activate this committee.
Right.
And thirdly, I would say, if we have certain footprints here and there, let us network those footprints, because if in a policy, if we don't look at a structure where we will get inputs, we will monitor it, we will review it, and then pass on the corrections to that system.
Right.
We have suggested this in our
Policy.
suggestions, that there has to be a structure which has to be built, and then that structure will not just capture, it will also return to the farmer.
Okay.
So the farmer in the Gram Sabha has to look at what could be the best structure.
Jack, now how will you sitting in wherever you will be sitting on that day ensure that everybody speaks in same voice and also the suggestions become constructive, and how will those suggestions ultimately be placed in front of the government in a logical way?
We already took a step on this. We made a resolution
Yeah,
and we sent to, actually we tried on social media and whoever we know
correct.
to, you know, as per your this village, you try to tweak it, make it align with your village and do the resolution, so that, you know, we
Right.
need to understand, suppose there are no doctors or engineers, we can still survive.
Right.
But if there is no farmer, no food, no life. So even if you are not a farmer, we have to, you know, try do our part. Go to this Gram Sabha meeting and do your part to support these farmers.
Right.
So this is one of our requests to all the citizens.
Right.
And the resolution is already sent.
Right.
How to, some people may be not aware of it. So how to put it, how to make our agriculture policy better this.
Okay. Abbas Bab, how can we make 2nd October really memorable for the future of our youth and for the preservation of our agriculture?
As we say, India lives in villages, so to Goa. If tourists come to Goa, they don't come to stay in the AC rooms.
Correct.
They will go around Giri, look at the swaying trees and beautiful greenery, and that makes the life pleasurable.
Correct.
So we want to maintain this culture of our greenery and harmony together, so that the Goa's uniqueness and identity
Correct.
is preserved. So we want to focus on our village forum at the 2nd October. Look, this is your
No,
Tumche
Abbas Bab,
dice.
but practically, I agree.
Yes.
Practically speaking, do you have a mechanism where all the suggestions are going to be compiled? There's going to be a summary made, give it to the government. Have you all thought of all that?
Yes. What is going to happen is we have sent them our agenda. We have sent them even model resolution copy,
Right.
and tell them to wherever required.
Right.
So we are going to only to facilitate. They indigenous people know it best. Their knowledge is fantastic, and we are trying to push our youth organizations wherever possible,
Right.
because they want to pick it up from them and take it to the next
Right,
step.
right.
So when it comes to compiling, we have thrown our head into it. So we
Okay.
will help you in compiling.
right.
But as far as the village resources are concerned, your soil is land is concerned, your water resource is concerned, your crops, your people, your animals, we want them to identify. And once they tell us this is what we want, we are into action. We will link them up to the department. We will be watchdogs for this policy.
Right.
We will see that it happens in on the ground.
Sandarma.
आमी करतरी कितें करता 2nd ऑक्टोबर मिटींग जाता
Right.
हो पॉयंट एड जातलोच पूण त्याच दिसा आमी 3:30-4 एक लादीन करताय लिटानी फुरान दोंगर आहा त्याच आमी गांधी जयंती हें करताय तें ग्राम स्वराज प्रमोट करपाक आनी त्याच दिसा आमी तेगले बर्थडे हें करता आमचो लाल बहादूर शास्त्री पयलींचो जय जवान जय किसान ते हेजेर पूण ते कोणाक पड नासना पूण आमी ते आज देखून घेवन आहाय आदली कोण आहाय ते आतां जनरेशन कितें करता तेजेरूय आहा आनी फुडली पिळगी आतां आमी कितें केलां आदली पिळगी हें करून हे फुडली पिळगेकूय आमी सापड करपाक गेला तें करपाक आतां कितें जाता तें गोवोरमेंटान दाखोवन दिवपा जाय तें आमकां करूंक दिनाय फुडली पिळगेक आमी कितें दितले तें इम्पोर्टंट तें आमी डिसायड करतले 2nd ऑक्टोबर तें मुखार व्हरपाक आनी सारकें ग्राम स्वराज हें करपाक डेवलप करपाक हें प्रोडक्शन कॉमिटी हें तेंचें
Activate.
लोकल लेवल हाडपाक एक्टिवेट करपाक तें डिसिजन घेतलें आमी
Okay, we've unfortunately.
One of the things is we are demanding the policy may remain in the cupboard and in the shelves. We are strongly demanding from association that government should hike the budget provision in the budget, so that implementation is become doable.
Correct. Okay. Okay.
Especially for the youth.
Need to hard stop now, but the biggest takeaway. Firstly, I thank all of you for all your views and suggestions and comments, and I actually feel this discussion will be valid as a drop in the ocean only if we ensure that this translates into the will of the people. It has to also translate into the will of the villages, because ultimately the future of our villages lies in the hands of villagers. They are the ones who need to be the arbiters of their own destinies. They need to take control over their futures and their decisions. The interesting part is that the 73rd Amendment empowers villagers to do this. This empowerment has been taken away from people because the political will is either lacking or the political will is towards other activities which actually aim to destroy lands, and the whole purpose of greed overtakes the purpose of sustainability. And this is the reason why village bodies, village associations and village authorities have been sidelined, and even their control over their lands and their management and the management of the resources has been taken over, and different acts and different rules continuously cut to pieces and sideline age-old practices and traditions that have always led to our villages and the farms being sustainable. Ultimately, the people's movement is very, very welcome, but it also needs a political will to understand what the people want. Otherwise, this whole gap between what the government thinks and what the people really want, especially the villagers, will intensify and grow bigger and bigger. And ultimately, who suffers? The future of our children get completely ruined. The youth migrate and go away to other places. Our farms are full of migrant labor. Our farms ultimately shrink, and concrete becomes our way of life rather than our rivers and the Khazan lands and fields and sluice gates. If this is a future that we want, then let us go ahead and destroy ourselves. But if there's any hope, then let's listen to the voices on this table who represent a large body of people in Goa who still think that Goa lives in its villages and will continue to do so. Thank you very much.